the deal that I made with the people on the other side, and my commitment to the people on this side is to deliver messages of healing from the other side.
Mm.
So that's what I do, because there's so many people that get stuck in grief because they have guilt, they have
Welcome to the Metamorphosis Project Podcast. I'm your host, Tenya Eickenberg, and this is a space where transformation begins. Welcome back to the Metamorphosis Project Podcast. I'm your host, Tenya, and with me today I have Laura. It's Hoorweg, correct?
Correct. First time.
Correct.
Hey.
I did practice a little bit before you came on, because I don't like to pronounce people's names wrong, and that's why I put it on the scheduling how to say it phonetically, because my name being Tenya, if you look at how it's spelled, it's Tenya, and so it's often pronounced as Tenya. So I work diligently.
I would have pronounced it that way, actually.
Yeah. And anybody would. You can thank my dad for the spelling. I've spent 49, almost 50 years correcting people. And up until probably about a year and a half ago, I felt bad for correcting people. I got to the point where I was like, I answer to anything close, because I got tired of correcting people.
That's cute.
Yeah. So, my dad liked the name, and he liked me. So that's what he named me. So yeah, it's a very sweet story. But we're not here to hear my story. We're here to hear your story. And I was reading over your bio, and one thing popped out to me, and it was the part no bullshit soul whisperer is who you are at this time.
Yes.
Right? You basically say, here's what you're doing. You need to be accountable for it, but I'm here to help.
That's pretty much it. I always say that I am the most grounded spiritual woo-woo person that you'll ever meet, because I can get very woo-woo, but everything about me is grounded in practical life experience, because I've had a lot of life experience. So
yeah.
It's because honestly, I look at all the major religions, and people are leaving the churches, the synagogues, the mosques. And the reason they're leaving is because they're not being given tools for things that help them in their real life.
Yeah.
Because, I always say, even because I'm not religious, but I consider myself spiritual. But even spirituality, if your spirituality isn't aiding you in making your life better, then what good is it?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I jump off from.
Good. But how did your story start?
Okay, you had mentioned earlier that you want to talk about. Actually, my real searching started out when I was about 10 or 11. Because you see, I didn't grow up in a I went when I was really young, like 5 and under. My mom sent us to Baptist Sunday school for a little while. Okay. That was about the full circle and experience of my church going, because my family was not religious whatsoever. But when I was 10 or 11, I decided that I wanted to go and meet God and the angels. And of course, at that time, being in a Judeo-Christian country, I thought God and the angels must be at church, because that's where everybody goes.
Right. That's where everybody goes every Sunday.
Where everybody goes.
Maybe another day during the week. Yep.
So and obviously, my family wasn't going to take me because they weren't church-going people. So, luckily enough, at that period of my life, we were living in a subdivision that had a smattering of probably every different kind of church that you could think of, that was basically within walking distance of my house. So every Sunday for about 6 or 8 weeks, I put on my little patent leather shoes and my little skirt, my little blouse. Because back in the day, I'm dating myself again, but back in the day, people dressed in their Sunday best. That's where the uh, the phrase came from, to go to
Yeah.
church. So I dressed up and off I went. And I tell you, I went to a Baptist church. I went to a Roman Catholic church. I went to a Methodist church. I went to a Salvation Army church, like so many different kinds of churches. Okay. And I met some nice people and I met some not nice people. And I was exposed to some wonderful music and all kinds of interesting things, but I absolutely did not find God or the angels at church. So,
Mm-hmm.
so as I started getting into my early teens and mid-teens, I was in Girl Guides and stuff like that. So I got really into camping and hiking and all that kind of things, wilderness camping and hiking. So
Okay.
what I found actually was I found that my true connection to what I would call God, universe, spirit, whatever
Right.
label you want to put on it, was out in nature. And that's where I really connected. So that for me was basically the wilderness was my cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
So that is how I really started to connect to spirit. Now, I always say this because people have a tendency to think uh, spirituality or spiritual growth is kind of a straight line. That couldn't be further from the truth. A spiritual journey is like this. You got up and down and up and down and up and
It
down.
looks very similar to the human journey.
Absolutely, because that's what it is. It's part of the
Yep.
human journey, right? Actually, I
Yep.
like. I'll have to use that. Yeah. So when I was about the next sort of really big, powerful spiritual experience I had when I was about 15, and again, I was out in the wilderness, and I was actually up in Algonquin Park, which is a huge provincial park slash state park for you guys
Mm-hmm.
in northern Ontario, and it was a canoeing camp. I was working for the Y, and it was a canoeing camp, but a big part of the program was the climbing training. So we
Okay.
were actually training as leaders, and we had climbed up this, I don't know, 200-foot cliff, and we were resting on the top of the cliff because we were going to rappel down. So that's the way you do it. You climb up and you rappel back down.
Yeah.
And I was just standing and looking out on this immense beauty, like the beauty of I can't even describe this because you're up in the middle of God's country, which I like to call it. I add extra words, but I'm not going to add them now. And and there was nothing but lakes and trees and rock and rivers, and it was
Oh,
just
how beautiful.
absolutely beautiful. Okay. And I was seeing it from like a 200 or 300 foot cliff top too. So
Mm.
it was even more immensely beautiful because I could literally see for miles and miles and miles. And of course, no form of any kind of civilization was present. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened to me is all of a sudden I felt this feeling. It was just like this whoosh, and I totally left my body and I found myself up in the sky looking down on myself, on my body and my compadres who were all sitting and chatting and stuff resting on this cliff. And I'm sitting up there going, "Wow, this is pretty wild." And just as I was getting used to that and thinking, "Wow, this is pretty wild," all of a sudden again that feeling was like this whoosh happened. And all of a sudden, I found myself outside of the earth, looking down on the earth.
Wow.
Now, again, I'm
And
going
you
to
were
date,
how old at this time?
I'm 15,
How
14,
how
15.
how scary was that for a 15-year-old?
Okay, this is the point. There was no fear in this at all. I felt
Wonderful.
totally safe. I felt incredibly expanded, but I was still myself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I will date myself again because this was, I was born when I was really young. It was then when they had the first moon landings and all the astronauts and stuff, which I was like so into. And that was the first time the astronauts talked about seeing the Earth, because that was the first time that we saw the Earth from outside the Earth.
Right. Yep.
And they spoke about it with just like awe and wonder. And I'm there, and now I understand because I'm actually looking at the earth from outside of the earth. And I'm just really, again, getting into this. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, again. And I am literally out in the universe because I'm seeing all these different spiral galaxies all around me. Okay.
Mhm.
And then I look over there and I go, oh, that's the Milky Way. And oh, on that little arm, that's where we are right there. Right. And it was just wild. And I was just like, again, not afraid at all, totally expanded, but still myself. This is an important
Mhm.
thing. It was like
Right.
I was part and parcel of the entire universe, but I was still me. Okay.
Mhm.
So again, I was just like, by this point, I was wondering, okay, like what's next? I'm out in the universe. Like, how much further can we go?
Right.
And just at that second, when that thought occurred to me, it was literally, again, we're going to date ourselves. Back in Star Trek, when that giant hand comes and grabs the spaceship, grabbed me, and literally pulled me. It wasn't a hand, but this is a good analogy. And it just pulled me right back into my body. And it was the most unbelievable feeling you can ever think of. Because the way I describe it, it was like taking a basketball and trying to stuff it into a Coke bottle. That's exactly what
Okay.
it felt like. Because my energy was so expanded. And then I was like literally stuffed back into my body. And it was like 3 or 4 days before I actually felt comfortable again in my body because it was a
Mhm.
real adjustment. So that was wild. That reorganized everything I thought. Thought about life, thought about death, because, I was out of my body, but
Right.
I was not dead. And
Right.
I was experiencing all these things. I think of it as kind of a cross between an NDE, a near-death experience,
Mhm.
and a astro traveling. That's the best
Okay.
description that I can give to it because it kind of had elements of both, but it wasn't either or.
Right.
So that was it. So that was my next little jump off point. Then I got into my latter teens and my 20s, and I was not really spiritual. I was
So
way,
15,
I was,
you had this big moment,
yeah,
and
I
how
was
long after
way
that you were
too,
like, I'm gonna party for a bit.
yeah, I was way too focused on partying. And then I got into I would say I really started getting back into my spiritual journey probably in my mid to early mid 30s is when I
Okay.
started doing a lot of reading and joining a lot of groups and doing a lot of experimentation and all kinds of stuff like that. And then, as that went along, that journey changed greatly,
Okay.
up and down, up and down.
Right.
And then till my next really big thing, well, you have a group and they stop you. When I was 29, that was another experience of a little bit of a different kind, because I was in a very severe car accident and an angel saved my life.
Your guardian angel?
Um, yes, one of them. Actually, I
Yeah.
think it was Archangel Michael. Archangel Michael is kind of the head of my group. And at the
Okay.
time, I didn't realize exactly. I knew it was an angel, but I didn't realize exactly which one. But
Right.
now that I look back on it, I'm pretty darn sure it was Archangel Michael. And it's an interesting story because what happened was this was back in the 80s, and I was living in Alberta, which is kind of like north of Montana,
Okay.
and in the prairies, the Canadian prairies. And they just brought in the new seatbelt law. And of course, I'm in my 20s and I'm going, there's no way in hell I'm wearing a seatbelt. It crushes my clothes, it's uncomfortable. This ain't happening. This ain't happening, right? Remember your 20s? This ain't happening. Okay.
It just brought back all of the comments that would people would say when they were told they needed to wear a mask during
Oh,
COVID,
during
like I'm not
COVID,
wearing
yeah.
a mask. So
Something similar to that. Okay.
yeah.
So anyway, this cop stops me, and there was a huge ticket, like just it was close to, I think even then it was somewhere like $350, $400, which we're
Wow.
talking back in the 80s. Like they really
Wow.
wanted to drive this home that we had to
Right.
wear our seatbelts.
Right.
And that was part of it. But the weird part of this experience was that this police officer, usually they write your ticket, they say you're a bad girl, and they want to get rid of you as quickly as possible.
Right.
Okay. This guy gave me about a 10-minute lecture. And it was kind of like the lecture that your dad would give you. Like
Mm.
it started out with, oh, you're such a pretty intelligent young woman, blah, 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 blah. You're going to die if you don't wear your seatbelt. And that was weird enough. Okay. And not even so between the ticket and the lecture, I decided, what the hey?
Right.
I'm going to wear my seatbelt. So I started wearing my seatbelt. It was either the next day or the following, the 2 days after. I don't remember which, but it doesn't matter. It was very close after that I was driving. And I'm not going to go into the whole accident thing because this story would take too long. I was in a very serious accident where a woman ran a stop sign. So I hit her
T-bone.
T-boned
Yep.
her, which is equivalent, if you know anything about physics, it was like running into a brick wall, okay?
Yeah.
Because she was going this way, I was going this way, and I
Yeah.
was coming down a hill, so I was actually accelerating because I saw her come to the sign and she stopped. So I had taken my foot off the gas. And when I saw her stop, I put my foot back on the gas. And of course, she waited till I was right at the intersection and
Oh,
decides to try to race. She was charged with
right.
reckless endangerment or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, rode off both cars. She walked away without a scratch. I had all kinds of injuries. Okay. So then I get to the hospital and oh no, this cop comes, not the same one that gave me the ticket for the
Well,
seatbelt, but
that's good.
another police officer, and he goes, "Miss," he said, "you are so lucky that you had your seatbelt on, because if you didn't have your seatbelt on, you would have gone right through that windshield, over that car, and we would have been scraping you off." And he actually said this, "We would have been scraping you off the tarmac." He said, "You would have been dead."
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going, wow. And this was only like a day after this happened.
Right.
So I
Yep.
get to the hospital and he follows me to the hospital because he's got my purse, my identification, and all that stuff. And I said to him, I told him about the other police officer giving me a ticket. And he goes, "Oh," he goes, what did he look like?" And I described this guy. This guy was very distinctive. He was very tall, he was very attractive, he was very distinguished looking. He's probably like 50 something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like my dad's age would have been at that age. And the guy is the other police officer. He's just looking at me because he's not young either. And he goes, "Wait a minute." He says, "I've been in this precinct for almost 20 years." He said, "There's nobody like that in this precinct." And
Wow.
I said, "Well, couldn't he have been from some other,
Right.
station?" And he goes, "No." He said he wouldn't have been giving you a ticket then.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's when I
Ooh.
knew. Ooh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that was my thing at 29. And then probably the next biggest thing, if you want to keep going, was probably there's probably some other in the other things in the middle, but the other really big thing was when I was 52. I had my career had bottomed out because I was in the newspaper business. And if you know what happened to the
Right.
newspaper business about 10, 15 years ago. So anyway, I decided to leave and I thought I would have no problem finding a job and blah, 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 blah. Turned out that was not the case. Okay, I never knew that there was so ageism. So I was all freaked out about being unemployable. And I had taken some time off because I got a golden handshake. And then I went to go back to work and start looking for a job. And then I found out there was all this ageism and everything. And I was like, oh my God, what's going to go on here? And
Yeah.
then very shortly after that, uh, my beloved passed away suddenly. Just basically within a few hours, he went from
Mm.
alive to dead.
Wow, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that was about 12 years ago, so it's a
Yeah.
long time ago. But it was just my whole life imploded and exploded at the same time. So
Yeah.
that led me on to a spiritual healing journey where I did all kinds of crazy things. Very interesting things. I went to, I
Like,
don't know if you know who it is, but I went, a lot of people will. I went to John of God in Brazil. I was there. I was supposed to be there for, he was a trance healer. Um,
uh-huh.
and he has a whole compound in Brazil. I'm not sure whether he's still there or not. He had some problems with the law, which
Okay.
spiritual people often do. But anyway, so I did that. I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. I ended up being there for 6 weeks. I came back to Canada. I was barely here at all because I had already been basically primed for my next journey, which was I did an ayahuasca intensive in Peru. So then I went off to
Mm-hmm.
Peru, and that was
Mm-hmm.
pretty wild.
Yep.
And
Love ayahuasca.
yeah, oh, not for the faint of heart.
It is not. It is not.
And and then by the time I got back, I was still wondering what I was going to do. And I decided I loved, I had gotten into yoga. So I decided, oh, I guess I'm meant to be a yoga instructor. So off I go. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this as my business, I got to get my ass in gear. I got to get certified and I got to do it quickly. So I
Mm-hmm.
ended up going to Costa Rica and doing a month long teacher intensive training so that I could get my ass in gear, and then came back and found out that really, being told flat out that the yoga journey was for my healing and I wasn't supposed to be a yoga teacher. So
You
it
weren't
just,
supposed to teach people. You were just supposed to take the course in order to learn yourself.
exactly.
Yeah, I've been through a couple of those courses.
Yeah, oh, I've been through a lot of them. I had
Yeah.
been through
Yeah.
some of those when I was younger
Yeah.
too. I've done
Yeah.
a
It's like,
lot of
couldn't I have
things.
done this a cheaper way, guys?
Yeah, I've done a lot of energy healing courses and all
Yep.
this stuff, and realized that I was never meant to be a hands-on healer, whether it's yoga or whether it was energy healing or whatever it is. I was basically meant to do what I'm doing now. And being a Gemini, talker, how surprising is that? So that pretty much covers it. So after all those experiences, because when I was still in corporate, I was doing readings and stuff on the side for people, but
Mm-hmm.
it was very separate. I had my professional corporate life and I had my private spiritual life, and never the twain shall meet, which was part of the problem. But then after all these things happened and after I went through this huge healing journey, I realized that that was actually my true calling, and I started, what was it, in 2015? Yeah, 2015. I started my spiritual counseling and coaching practice.
Okay. And that's what you're doing now.
And that's what I'm doing now. I'm a spiritual counselor and an intuitive coach. I'm also
Okay.
a medium. I do mediumship work as well, helping people heal from grief.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that I still do in person, because all my spiritual counseling and coaching, I do all that over Zoom like we're doing right now. So I have clients all over the world, but I
Okay.
was most of the mediumship work, the group work, is done in person.
Okay. And
A little bit different.
tell me a little bit about the spiritual counseling. What does that entail?
Well, it's really about, I start with looking at people. It's a bit, it's not a reading. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I make this very clear because people go, "Oh, I want a reading." Well, it's not really a reading.
Yeah.
I see readings in a lot of senses, especially the way things happen today. It's kind of like infotainment. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not what I do.
Right.
Uh, Spiritual counseling is I use my spiritual gifts, the way that I can read energy, the way that my guides connect to your guides, and they all speak through me. and we look at whatever issues that you have going on in your life. Okay, whether it's spiritual issues, whether it's a relationship issues, whether it's family issues, whether it's business issues, whether it's dealing with your own spiritual growth, whatever blocks, past lives, whatever, sometimes I even do some Akashic record stuff. It's whatever that particular person that's sitting in front of me needs.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's the
absolutely.
spiritual account. And the wonderful thing about it is I have all these wonderful gifts, but I also have I've had an interesting life. Right from when I was born. Okay, if you want to go back that far, we can go back that far too. But I have a wealth of life experience in all different things, and that comes big time into my counseling and into my coaching as well. Because I always say this is why, I've had people say to me, clients tell me that, an hour with me has been more effective for them than 3 years of traditional counseling.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's very different. And there is a place for that. I'm not saying there's not a place for that, but it's one thing to approach somebody from book learning. And it's a whole nother thing to be able to look somebody in the eye and say, I know exactly how you feel because I've been there.
Right.
That's very different. And
Yeah.
it's why support groups work.
Yeah.
That is the whole basis of support groups. So between my connection with spirit and my connection and my ability to read energy and my life experience, all those things get poured into this lovely bowl, and that's what we do.
The
Now,
bowl of
in terms of
possibility.
the coaching is more of an ongoing building process. It's especially effective for people who are going through major transitions. Now, there's all kinds of major transitions. It could be divorce, it could be changing careers, it could be somebody navigating the entrance into midlife or into elderhood. It could, there's all different kinds um, of things that I go into coaching too, and a lot of times I help a lot of people with their businesses because a lot of those transitions are people transitioning from a traditional career into some kind of entrepreneurship, building their own company or doing their own gig in one way or another. So that's the coaching part. The mediumship part, as I said, I'm not an evidentiary medium. Most of the mediums that you'll see like on TV or doing big talks in halls and things like that, they're basically evidentiary mediums, which means they spit out a lot of facts, and a huge part of their intention is to really show people that there's life after death.
Right.
I don't care if you believe in life after death. Honestly, I don't even care. My intention and the deal that I made with the people on the other side and my commitment to the people on this side is to deliver messages of healing from the other side. So that's what I do because there's so many people that get stuck in grief because they have, they have guilt, they have they weren't there when the person passed. There's all kinds of issues that people
They have
have.
anger,
Anger,
frustration,
frustration,
yep.
all these things, the unhealed, unsaid things, all those things. Well, I can give you a quick example. One of my favorite examples.
Sure.
Is I had a young man come through in one of my in-home group mediumship sessions, and he actually none of his relatives were there, but there was actually a friend of the family there, and he was so desperate to get his message through to his family and his friends because he was in a single vehicle motorcycle accident. And because of the evidence at the scene, there was no skid marks, there was nothing. And this is nothing against the police. It's just they did from what they saw.
Right.
And so they ruled it as a suicide because he drove straight into a massive tree and was
Oh,
killed. So this just shattered his entire family and his friends. And if you know anything about suicide, especially in young males, because he was a young guy, he was only I think 17, 18, something like that. He ended this whole situation escalated, and he had a younger brother and a couple of his friends who were on the verge of suicide themselves because of what had
mm,
happened. But
gosh.
anyway, the true story is, which he brought out in session so that this girl could bring
Tell
this
his
message
family.
to his family, was that he took responsibility for his death, but he absolutely made it crystal clear that he did not try to take his own life. What happened is he was really sick. He took a bunch of over-the-counter cold medicines and he fell asleep at the wheel. That's why there
Oh,
was no
wow.
skid marks, no nothing. And he took responsibility because he knew that he shouldn't be driving.
Right.
He shouldn't be on his motorcycle, but he really wanted to, young people's decision. He really
Right.
wanted to be home and sleep in his own bed and blah, blah, woof, woof. So it ended up resulting in his passing. But the healing that went through this entire family and his friend group and everything after finding out this information was life changing. Absolutely
Oh,
life
I'm
changing.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So this is
Yeah, I'm
why
sure they
I'm
were
dedicated to
incredibly
doing
appreciative.
that, delivering those kinds of messages, because
Yeah.
they really help people heal.
Yeah. And
I've
grief
had
is,
people heal from their grief that have been grieving for over 10 years. Okay. This is not natural. Okay.
yeah.
We are meant to grieve, but we are not meant to grieve indefinitely.
Yeah.
Everybody's different, but honestly, to be in the throes of grief for any more than a year to 2 years, there's a problem. You're stuck somewhere and you need to seek out help because that's just too long to be in the grieving process. Because even the our loved ones on the other side, they say this all the time. They know that we need to grieve, but they
Hmm.
don't want us to be grieving forever. They want us to
Right.
grieve their passing and move on. And
Right.
a lot of people get stuck for a whole raft of different reasons, but there's a lot of people that get stuck. So that's what my mediumship work is about.
Beautiful. I love that.
Get people
And
unstuck.
good. And one of the things that you shared with me was that um you also help your clients with self-care.
Yes.
So
Huge.
how do you help your clients in the world that we're living in today with all of the
Okay. Yeah.
good Lord, the stuff going on in our world today? What would you tell someone? What self-care techniques or pathway would you recommend for a person of today?
Okay. The first thing that you have to realize is for a long time, self-care was kind of optional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You literally could get away without doing it. But for the last, I would say definitely for the last, well, pretty much ever since the end of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
since COVID, not the end of COVID, but since COVID,
Right.
my guides have been harping, literally harping. The mantra of self-care is no longer optional, it's absolutely necessary. Okay.
100%.
100% necessary. Okay. And the thing about self-care is people don't realize it's a four-pillar thing. It's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So there are certain things that you have to do. My absolute first and primary one that I get my clients into is meditation. The
Mm-hmm.
reason that I love meditation is it handles all four pillars at once: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. It's the only thing that I know that handles all four at the same time. Okay. Now, none of this is new or earth shattering. Okay. But the earth-shattering message is you have to actually do this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't just talk about it or do it once in a while. Like when I talk about a meditation practice, there's a reason why it's a practice, and that's because you do it every single day. Okay.
Right.
I've been meditating consistently for the last 12 years. I could probably count on two hands the number of days that I've actually missed meditating. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. It doesn't have to be hours and hours. I
Right.
say if you can meditate for 20 to 30 minutes every morning, you're golden.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always recommend morning as the primary time because that sets your energy for the whole day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Secondary time is before you go to bed, especially if you have any sleep issues. Okay. But the nice thing about meditating just before you go to sleep, it can even be shorter because you're already gearing down, you're already getting
Right.
into that meditative state. So even like 5, 10 minutes
Yeah.
is really helpful before you go to bed. Okay. So that's meditation. The other thing is movement. This is huge now because there's so much energy coming into our world from cosmic sources, from our sun, inside, because we're sitting inside the mass consciousness, which is full of fear, anxiety, hatred, and all kinds of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that mass consciousness surrounds this world. It's an energy field. So it's really important. And unfortunately, we tend to hold not only our own negative energies in our bodies, in our joints and our muscles, but also all this incoming energies from others, from the mass
Mm-hmm.
consciousness, and from I'm just going to say cosmic, which is
Yeah.
unearthly energies. Okay. So, what we need to do is not kill ourselves in the gym, okay? I'm going to tell you, and especially for people over the age of 45, but they've told me pretty much everybody now, this is how much the energy shifted. Hardcore cardio actually does more harm than good. Okay, which
Mm.
I'm glad to hear because I hate hardcore cardio. I've always hated it. Okay. So, you need to have movement, and the best kind of movement is what works for you best, but the best kinds of movement are gentle active movement, brisk walking, some of the lighter martial arts like tai chi and
Mm-hmm.
taekwondo, uh, um,
Qigong.
qigong, that's the one I was looking for, qigong, thank you. Things like that. Okay. Yoga, huge, huge. Okay. And again, it doesn't have to be this crazy, vigorous Western style yoga. Okay.
Yeah.
The kind that I recommend most to, and I'm a yoga teacher certified, that I recommend to my clients is restorative and yin yoga. Okay. Those
Okay.
two are the best deep stretch and restorative yoga. Okay. And again, when it comes to yoga, yoga also, whether you're aware of it or not, also covers all those four pillars at the same time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's where
Absolutely.
yoga came from. Okay.
Okay.
And yoga really isn't asanas, but which asana is the poses, and that's a whole nother conversation for another day.
Okay.
The other big, huge thing is sleep. And people have forgotten how important this is. And
Yeah.
it's coming back now because there are so many people that have major sleep problems, okay? And people don't realize this. If you are sleep deprived for long enough, you can actually have a psychotic break. Like
You
people don't
can.
realize this.
Yeah.
It can make you mentally ill. And
Yep.
I tell you, just to kind of plug into this, my guides and from source, I've gotten this message loud and clear that the next pandemic that's going to hit us, and it's not very long in the future, is not going to be a physical pandemic like a virus. It's going to be a pandemic of mental illness.
Oh, I'm
And that
sure.
has already started, by the
Yeah,
way.
absolutely. It started because of the last pandemic.
It did, but that, how do I put this without sounding, what's coming will make that look like a drop in the bucket. Okay. And I'm
Sounds scary.
already noticing this, by the way. I've
Mm-hmm.
been, whenever they tell me something, it's hard being me sometimes. They make sure that I have experiences that prove to me that that is real. So I know that it's not my imagination. I'm not making it up, that
Yeah.
this is the real thing. And if you want to
Yeah.
hear about one of those instances, I can tell you, but we'll get through the rest of this. So we've got meditation, we've got movement, we've got sleep. The other one is like I said, there's no rocket science to this. It is food. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And food is so important because we need to get away from as much of this chemical stuff that we can, which
Yeah.
means start cooking. Okay. You need to be making food from scratch, not
Mm-hmm.
eating packaged, highly processed foods of any kind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just, get the best quality food that you can. Okay. I'm not even going to say that everything has to be organic or because there's
Just eat as
different
whole foods as you can.
eat whole foods, okay?
Yeah.
And a balanced diet, whichever works for you. Because again, different types of diets
Yep.
work differently for different people. So
Yep.
experiment, listen to yourself, listen to your body, be open to what works for you, and don't be railroaded by the latest fad.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the biggest
Yep.
thing. Okay.
Yep.
What else? Have I missed something? Have some kind, and I don't care what it is, they don't care what it is, some kind of spiritual practice, something that gets you connected with something greater than yourself.
Okay.
Okay. The
Wonderful.
worst thing I can ever hear is somebody who calls themselves an atheist. And the reason is because what that really means is that you don't believe in anything greater than yourself. Okay. And I really don't care what it is, and I don't care what your spiritual practice is. I don't care if you love your church going stuff. That's great. I don't care if you're a spiritualist. I don't care what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And your spiritual practice could be walking out into nature, sitting on a rock, and doing stuff in your journal.
Right.
Okay. But there has to be something where you're connecting not only to something greater than yourself, but also making that connection to something within you, who you really are.
Yeah.
As above, as below, and as below, as above. Okay. That
Yep.
connection needs to be flowing. Okay.
Absolutely.
And if we get too into ourselves, um, there's way too much emphasis. It's really getting scary, actually. People talking about augmenting their bodies with foreign electronics and all kinds of crazy things. That's a whole nother show, but
Yeah.
that's a scary thing. Okay?
Yeah.
Because what it's doing is taking away what makes us human. Okay? Our
Mm-hmm.
ability to connect to things of a spiritual, of a higher vibrational nature is way better than anything we could ever supplement our body with.
Oh, absolutely.
But
Absolutely. Our
people don't
bodies are
realize
amazing.
this.
Yeah.
People don't realize this, and
They don't
that's a
they,
huge
they
thing.
don't and they're on their journey to try to figure that out. And eventually they will figure it out. Maybe not in this lifetime, but
Yeah.
eventually they'll figure it out.
Well, as long as they don't figure it out for everybody else. Okay.
No, they won't.
This is my fear that things become no longer voluntary. They become forced on people. That's a whole nother subject, but that I can see possibilities of that kind of thing are now showing up as well.
Yeah,
The
we
other
just need to
thing
make
that
sure that we all have discernment
yes, yes,
and can, think for ourselves. And there are going
yes.
to be a group of people who are not going to be able to think for themselves. And unfortunately, they're going to fall victim to those kinds of this is what you have to do. And we have already seen a lot
Well,
of
there's
that
already
happening
that
within the
going
world.
on to a certain extent.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
The
So,
one that I forgot in terms of self-care, and this is important because they're bugging me now, is human connection. Here we go. Okay. This is human connection. And it's not talking about numbers. It's talking about finding people, even if it's only one or two people that
yeah,
you connect with, you feel safe with, and you feel like you can talk to and have a relationship with. And that this is okay, but what I'm really talking about is in person.
right.
Okay. We
Yeah,
have to stop, not that we have to stop totally doing this kind of thing because it has its value. But what I'm really talking about that we cannot let go of is person to person contact. I will give you a scary little quick scenario. I was walking in the park one day not too long ago, and ahead of me, quite a distance ahead of me, I saw two young boys. They're like 12, 13 years old. They're sitting side by side on a bench and they were both on their phones. As I got closer and closer, and because I have other qualities too, and I can read energies, the closer I got, the more I realized that these two were actually sitting side by side, talking to each other on their phones. They
oh
were
wow.
texting, yes, okay. They were texting back and forth on their phones instead of having a conversation. They were sitting side by each.
Yeah,
And I walked up to them. See, this is another thing people start having to do is when you see something, you need to speak up. And this isn't something we don't do enough. And I just stopped in front of them. I didn't shame them or anything. I said, guys, I said, what are you doing? And they're saying, well, we're talking. And I said, you're sitting right beside each other. Talk to each other. And they told, you know what their answer was? Oh, it's more fun texting. And I said, no, it's not. It's just because you haven't learned how to talk to each other because you're sitting there texting. And and I think I actually I'm not going to say that I totally changed their mind, but I really felt when I left, because again, I can read energy, that at least I planted a seed.
right. That's what I was just thinking. You planted the
Okay?
seed for a future moment.
Exactly. Because honestly, nobody can receive a message until they're ready to receive it.
Right.
But you can always plant seeds, and you should be doing that. This is a big thing that's happening now too, and a big part of this happened during COVID. It made it even worse. Is people are became afraid of actually speaking up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you see something that you feel is wrong, you need to speak up. And again, I don't mean you're a jerk or an asshole about it. You just need to say something
Yeah.
because you don't know what kind of seed you're planting and what change you could make in that person. And you also don't know when you're speaking to that person that somebody over here is overhearing what you're saying, and you might be helping that person.
Right.
Okay, this is another thing that people don't understand. So that is another part of what we need to do. We need to be with people physically in person, and we
Mm-hmm.
need to speak up when we see something that we feel that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Because that also does something not only for the person you're addressing, but it also does something for you. It builds confidence, it builds your authentic self, because when you're speaking with your authentic voice, you are building your authentic self.
Yeah.
If you're
Yep.
stuffing everything down, you are actually telling yourself that what you believe and what you feel doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's huge. And
Yeah.
that's why people become very introverted. They lose their self-confidence. Their self-worth suffers because they feel that what they have to say isn't worth anything. So
It's
there
very
we go.
sad. Yeah.
Which is very
Yeah.
sad. Yes, very
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, as we wrap up this conversation, is there anything that you would like the listeners to know or to hear that we did not touch on?
Wow, that didn't take long. They start talking before you even finish. The biggest thing, I think one of the biggest messages that I want to get out that my group wants to get out right now
Mm-hmm.
is there's no two ways about it. Things are going to get a lot worse. than they are right now. The next few years are going to be very, very challenging. Okay. Especially this year, in case you hadn't noticed. Okay.
Yep.
And it's just getting rolling. Okay. But the bright spot of that is I'm not going to do fear porn or anything like that, because there's a lot of people out there and you don't listen to that. Okay. It's just a simple equation. As the old falls apart and disappears, things are going to get interesting. Okay. They're going to get tough. It's going to be very challenging.
Yeah.
But the bright spot in all this is it's going to be it's going to change the world for the better. Okay. I'm going to give you an example that my group gave me. In 2020, my group told me that by 2030, so at that point it was 10 years, that by 2030 that we would look back to 2020 and we would just be dumbfounded, because there would have been the equivalent of 300 years of change in 10 years.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
We are already halfway through that. So really, we only have about 5 years. Okay. Yeah. Till 2030. So you can just imagine how and it's constantly escalating and speeding up, and the energy is speeding up. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on, but you have to focus on what you want, and focus on the positive things that you want to see. And that way, because I tell you, if you focus on the negative and you get drawn into the fear porn, that's what your life. More of it. Yeah, that's what your life's going to look like. Okay. Yep. The way to survive and to maintain and to self-care yourself through this period is to stay positive and grounded in the way that you want your world to look, and not get And I've actually, the other part of self-care, I forgot, is I actually suggest to people not to watch the news of any kind, kind. Okay. I have been doing this for over 10, probably more like 15 years. And what I did is I said to my group, I said, anything that I need to know, make sure that I'm made aware of it. And it worked. Right. Okay. Yeah. Because I don't watch news of any kind on anything. Okay. And I used to be in the news business. Okay. So this is quite a thing. Okay. But always, if I need to know something, I find out about it. And a good example is the Hawaii stuff, which we talked about before we came on air. Okay. Because I have that connection, that information was brought to me. Right. Yeah. See how that works? Yep. I love how my group, they always tie everything up in this nice little bow at the end, right? Yep. So,
Laura, where can people find you if they want to work with you?
Okay, the best thing to do is you can hit my website, which is www.spiritspeaks2.me. Or you can email me directly to set up an appointment. It's just simple, laurahoorweg@gmail.com. And I'm sure our lovely hostess is going to have all my links in the show notes.
Absolutely.
So that's the easiest way you can get a hold of me. And of course, I'm on socials. I'm all over Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter a little bit. I'm not crazy about Twitter, but I'm there.
Okay. Perfect. Laura, thank you so much for coming on.
And thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metamorphosis Project podcast. I hope today's episode brought you inspiration, joy, and a spark of empowerment. Remember, transformation is an incredible journey, and every single step you take towards self-care and healing brings you closer to the life you truly desire. If this episode uplifted you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us to share this journey of hope, resilience, and joy with many listeners. For more tips, support, and inspiration, come and visit us at designyourexistence.com. Until next time, keep growing, keep healing, and keep shining brightly. You are absolutely worth every bit of love and care you give to yourself. Take care, stay joyful, and be well.